I need you to pay attention to something. The next time you're alone in a large building after midnight, not a haunted building, not an abandoned asylum or one of those internet places people visit specifically because they expect something strange to happen. I mean an ordinary building. A grocery store after closing, a school during summer break, an office tower with only a few fluorescent lights still glowing somewhere deep inside, a hotel hallway at 3:11 a.m. when the ice machine suddenly activates by itself down the corridor. Listen carefully. Buildings make decisions at night. Not literally. Probably. But they change personality when people stop moving through them. During the daytime, architecture behaves obediently. Hallways are functional. Elevators are practical. Rooms exist to contain activity. But after enough human attention disappears, places begin reverting into something older and stranger. Air pressure shifts. Pipes start speaking in these distant metallic knocks. Motion sensors trigger with nobody there. Entire corridors begin feeling emotionally occupied, despite being physically empty. I know exactly when I started noticing this. There was a hospital, near where I grew up. One of those sprawling beige complexes built in stages over decades, so the architecture never quite matched itself, Half 70s geometry, half fluorescent modernism, endless connecting hallways, waiting rooms that smelled permanently of coffee and antiseptic. I had to spend several nights there years ago while somebody close to me was recovering from surgery. And somewhere around the third night, I realized hospitals stop pretending after about 2 a.m. That's the only way I can describe it. During the day, hospitals present themselves as systems, schedules, procedures, machines, and efficiency, but late at night, they become something else entirely. A giant breathing organism filled with pain, hope, fear, morphine dreams, whispered conversations, vending machine lights, squeaking shoes, exhausted nurses, families sleeping upright in chairs beneath televisions playing muted weather reports. And beneath all that, another atmosphere emerges, one that feels almost aquatic, like the entire building has sunk a few inches beneath ordinary reality. In a world full of noise, trust the signal. If you're hearing this, you've already found it. This is Dove and Serpent Radio. There's a corridor in every hospital that feels wrong. You know the one, even if you've never consciously noticed it before. Usually too long, right? Usually too empty. The lights slightly dimmer there for reasons nobody can explain. A hallway where your footsteps begin sounding detached from your body, arriving half a second too late. Somewhere nearby, a machine emits a single tone repeatedly at perfect intervals. And every instinct in your nervous system quietly says, do not stop walking here. What fascinates me is that these sensations are almost universal. Human beings consistently identify certain architectural spaces as emotionally uncanny, despite enormous cultural differences. Long corridors, stairwells, empty classrooms at dusk, underground parking garages, hotel hallways, airport terminals after midnight, especially airports. Airports after midnight do not feel like human environments anymore. They feel transitional in a deeper sense. Temporary populations drifting between destinations, while fluorescent light replaces circadian rhythm entirely. Nobody fully asleep, nobody fully awake. Entire identities suspended in transit. I was stranded overnight in an airport once, during a snowstorm, and around 4 a.m, I started noticing how profoundly bizarre the whole thing was. Hundreds of strangers asleep beneath charging stations and departure screens while recorded announcements echoed through nearly empty terminals. And there was this overwhelming sensation that we were no longer passengers, like we were inventory, just quietly stored consciousness, waiting for redistribution. Maybe exhaustion caused that thought, but maybe not. Airports reveal something unsettling about modern existence. Human beings now move across the planet so quickly that the nervous system can barely metabolize the transitions emotionally. One moment, you're eating breakfast beneath palm trees. 6 hours later, you're standing in freezing rain somewhere thousands of miles away, while your body still thinks it belongs elsewhere. No wonder dreams have become so strange for people lately. The psyche evolved for villages. Now it processes continents before lunch. You're tuned to Dove and Serpent Radio. And I need to tell you about the escalator. Not a specific escalator, the escalator phenomenon. There's something deeply wrong about seeing escalators completely stopped. Have you noticed that? When they move, the brain accepts them immediately as infrastructure. But when they're turned off, they become unsettling. It's like they're too steep or too mechanical, like the exposed ribs of some enormous sleeping creature. Especially in malls. Dead malls might actually be one of the strangest things modern civilization has ever produced. Entire artificial worlds designed for constant human movement, suddenly sitting silent beneath skylights, fake plants gathering dust, empty fountains, music still playing softly somewhere without anyone listening. I visited one accidentally years ago while driving through another state. The place wasn't fully abandoned yet. Worse than abandoned, like half functioning. Maybe 5 stores still operating inside this enormous, decaying commercial labyrinth. And there was a carousel still running. No children anywhere near it. just rotating slowly beneath fluorescent lights, while old instrumental music echoed through the empty food court. That image has stayed with me for years because, it felt less like economic decline and more like reality itself malfunctioning slightly. A functioning carousel requires joy, motion, children, noise. Without those things, it became grotesque somehow. Like laughter continuing after the person laughing has disappeared. That's what truly unsettles human beings, I think. Systems continuing without emotional context. There's an entire category of modern eeriness built around this sensation. Automated voices speaking into emptiness. Motion-activated decorations turning on for nobody. Artificial intelligence generating endless content without human attention. Algorithms talking to algorithms while people scroll past, half-conscious. Sometimes the modern world feels less inhabited than operational. I really think that's why older forms of weirdness are returning psychologically. The ghost stories, the UFOs and the cryptids and rituals and mysticism. People are searching desperately for signs that something alive still exists beneath the machinery. Even if it frightens them. Especially if it frightens them, fear at least feels real. There's a motel outside a small town I pass occasionally during some of our long drives. It has one of those old neon vacancy signs where several letters no longer work, right? So every night it says something slightly different. I stopped there once around 1:30 in the morning because I was too tired to continue driving safely, The lobby contained exactly 3 things. A fish tank with no fish, a television playing a weather channel from another state, and a bowl of individually wrapped peppermints that had probably existed since the Clinton administration. The man behind the counter barely looked at me. He slid the room key across the desk without speaking. The whole interaction lasted maybe 12 seconds. Now here's the weird part. The room itself looked completely normal, except for one thing. Beside the bed sat an old alarm clock radio, already switched on, extremely low, just static, barely audible. I remember standing there exhausted, staring at it, trying to determine whether the previous guest left it on or whether housekeeping had somehow missed it for weeks. But emotionally, it didn't feel accidental. It felt placed. Like the room wanted sound inside of it. Now that thought should not make any sense. And yet, there I was, nearly 2 a.m, staring at static in a motel room, feeling genuinely observed by the architecture itself. I turned off the radio eventually, obviously, because I prefer my existential crises without accompaniment. But about an hour later, I woke suddenly from a dream that I still vividly remember. In the dream, every room in the motel was occupied by someone standing perfectly motionless, beside the window, looking outward into darkness. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. They were all simply waiting for something to arrive from the highway. I left before the sun came up. And you're listening to Dove and Serpent Radio. You know what else is strange about human beings? We keep creating environments our nervous systems cannot fully interpret emotionally. Casinos, massive cruise ships, data centers, self-checkout lanes, virtual reality spaces, entire categories of places where the brain understands functionality intellectually, while some deeper biological layer remain unconvinced. Casinos especially. No clocks, artificial light, recycled oxygen, endless electronic noise designed to simulate reward anticipation. Casinos do not feel constructed. They feel grown, like luminous fungal systems feeding on probability and dopamine. I walked through one once around 4 a.m. and realized almost nobody inside appeared emotionally present anymore. Hundreds of people sitting before glowing machines in complete psychological isolation, despite physical proximity. A woman laughing suddenly at nothing. Someone pressing buttons with this mechanical rhythm while staring blankly ahead. And overhead, fake painted clouds on the ceiling, pretending it was still daytime. That detail bothered me more than anything else. The manufactured sky. Maybe because sky is supposed to tell the truth about time. But modern civilization increasingly edits reality to remove natural signals. Artificial light eliminates darkness. Notifications eliminate silence. Climate control eliminates seasons. Streaming eliminates waiting. The nervous system loses contact with older rhythms and starts drifting psychologically. That drift creates openings, and strange things enter through openings. Not necessarily supernatural things, though honestly, who knows anymore? I mean like perceptual things, symbolic things, and subconscious things. The psyche begins projecting meaning into neglected corners because meaning itself has become scarce. I think about that whenever people describe seeing figures from the corner of their eye, late at night. Science explains peripheral ambiguity, pattern recognition, and, fatigue and things like that. Probably true. Still interesting that the human mind consistently populates darkness with watchers. Ancient survival mechanism, maybe. Or maybe consciousness itself dislikes emptiness so intensely that it generates companionship automatically. And that possibility is both comforting and horrifying, depending on the hour. Tonight feels like the horrifying version. There's a phenomenon sailors used to report. during some long periods at sea, right? Where crew members began hearing phantom footsteps below deck, despite nobody being there. Entire ships developing personalities psychologically over time. Groaning sounds interpreted as moods. Wind through metal corridors becoming voices. Isolation changes perception. But maybe modern life creates a different kind of isolation, equally capable of distorting reality. Millions of people, surrounded constantly by millions of people, while remaining emotionally disconnected. Digital communication replacing physical presence. Entire friendships existing as illuminated text bubbles. Sometimes I genuinely wonder if humanity is becoming more ghost-like while still alive. Less embodied. Less grounded, more spectral. People barely look at each other anymore. Have you noticed that? Everyone passes through public spaces like temporary holograms, carrying invisible worlds inside their devices. And maybe that's why certain moments suddenly feel overwhelmingly real now. A stranger laughing naturally, rain against windows, a song heard accidentally from another room, a late-night conversation in a parked car. Reality has become intermittent, which means that when authenticity appears, it feels almost paranormal. I had this deeply unsettling experience recently. I woke up at exactly 3:33 a.m. 3 nights in a row. Now, logically, I know confirmation bias exists. Pattern recognition, circadian rhythms, subconscious expectation, but the third night still disturbed me. Because I woke up right before the clock changed. I was already staring at it, waiting. And for one irrational second, I had the overwhelming certainty that something else in the room was waiting too. Nothing was there, obviously, probably. But that's the thing about late-night consciousness. The mind becomes less interested in probability and more interested in atmosphere. You stop asking, is this rational? You begin asking, why does this feel charged? Maybe ancient humans lived closer to that state, constantly hyper-aware, animistic, interpreting intention within environments because survival depended on sensitivity to subtle changes. Modern life numbed that sensitivity for a while, and now I think it's returning. Not because people are becoming irrational, but because the world itself increasingly feels psychologically unstable. Artificial intelligence generating human faces that never existed. Deep fake voices speaking impossible sentences. Entire online populations possibly automated. Satellites watching continuously overhead. Algorithms predicting behavior before conscious choice occurs. Tell me honestly, how is any of this less weird than old ghost stories? At least haunted houses admit they're haunted. Modern systems pretend they're normal while doing objectively astonishing things. And maybe future generations will laugh that we feared cryptids, well, casually carrying devices capable of listening continuously, mapping behavior, and reshaping attention in real time. The monster already entered the village. We just charged it monthly. And yet, despite all this technological weirdness, the older, strange atmosphere still survives in physical places. Motel hallways, empty schools, laundromats at midnight, storage facilities, office buildings with one lit window at impossible hours. Especially laundromats. Nobody discusses how profoundly eerie laundromats become after midnight. Rotating clothes visible through circular glass like fragments of anonymous lives tumbling endlessly under fluorescent light. Every machine contains invisible biography. Somebody's work uniform, somebody's hospital scrubs, somebody's child's blanket, somebody's funeral clothes. Entire human narratives spinning quietly beside vending machines. And that's what late night places reveal if you stay still long enough. The unbelievable emotional density hidden beneath ordinary reality. Every building contains accumulated consciousness. Every object passed through human hands repeatedly. Every hallway remembers movement. Maybe not magically, but meaningfully. And perhaps meaning itself is a kind of haunting. I don't know. Maybe tonight I'm just tired enough to see through the surface layer a little. Or maybe the surface layer really is thinning lately. Either way, if you're awake right now listening somewhere in the dark, pay attention next time you enter an empty building after midnight. Listen carefully when the heating system clicks on unexpectedly. Notice how long corridors alter your breathing slightly. Watch the reflections in darkened windows. Not because something supernatural will necessarily happen, but because you may suddenly realize places are not passive. They shape consciousness continuously. And some places become stranger after human attention fades. Almost like they're relieved to finally be alone again. Until next time, stay strange in the silence. Keep the dial somewhere between wonder and understanding.